Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Muhammad Habba, and on behalf of Americans for Justice in Palestine Action, AJP Action, American Muslims for Palestine, CODEPINK, the Council on American-Islamic Relations, and the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations, we welcome you to our press conference today in condemnation of the upcoming meeting that will be beginning momentarily with Prime Minister Netanyahu. To begin today, our first speaker is the Secretary General of the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations, Usama Jamal.
Good afternoon. The U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations stands united in denouncing Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit to America and his meeting with President Trump. Netanyahu, facing allegation as a war criminal sought by the International Criminal Court, has no place in our nation. Rewarding him for his actions and plans for continued genocide against the Palestinian people is unacceptable. Netanyahu and his far-right extremist allies pose an existential threat not only to Palestinians, but also to Israelis. His vision of territorial expansion will lead to further hostility and will not bring the peace that is desperately needed in the region. This escalation, ironically, fuels anti-Semitism from the same countries supplying weapons used against Palestinians. President Trump has made a commitment to making America great again, a noble and patriotic vision. It is imperative that he prioritize American interests and does not allow himself to be dictated by an Israeli prime minister, as was seen during Biden's administration. It is unacceptable for the President of the United States to be disrespected and misled on the global stage, repeating false narratives propagated by Netanyahu. The American people are looking to President Trump to realize a vision for peace, not only in the Middle East, but worldwide. This vision cannot be achieved if he succumbs to Netanyahu's demands for further military actions that endangers countless lives. Netanyahu's belief that he can dominate the region through aggression is misguided and dangerous. We urge President Trump to remain steadfast in his call for a complete ceasefire, an end to Israeli hostilities, and a halt to the intimidation faced by the Palestinian people. It is crucial that he demands Netanyahu and his extremist cabinet cease their provocations at sacred sites, including the Aqsa Mosque, which only inflame tension among over 1.3 billion Muslims globally. Gaza may be devastated, but its spirit remains alive and resilient. We ask President Trump to ensure full access to humanitarian aid, including food, medicine, rescue equipment, and construction materials. Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike in the region deserve peace, justice, and harmony. Netanyahu and his extremist faction cannot deliver this vision. It is time for a new approach, one rooted in understanding and respect for all people in the region. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Medea Benjamin from CODEPINK.
For many, many months, we have had a rallying cry saying, Netanyahu, war criminal, take him to The Hague. This is much more than a slogan. This is a desperate call by people around the world to hold accountable the person most responsible for the slaughter, the sniping, the maiming, the starving, the freezing of an entire population. This is a sincere call to adhere to the rulings of the highest court of the land, the International Criminal Court. But instead of being at The Hague, what do we find? Netanyahu here on our streets of Washington, D.C., meeting with the highest officials of our country, the President of the United States, the leaders of the Pentagon, the leaders of our Congress, the pro-Israel lobby groups like the evangelicals, and even the billionaire who is trying to take over our country, Elon Musk. Boo! Boo! We know what Netanyahu wants. He wants more money from U.S. taxpayers. He wants more weapons. He wants to not carry out the ceasefire. He does not want phase 2 and phase 3 of the ceasefire because he does not want to remove Israeli military from Gaza. He wants to drag the U.S. into a war with Iran, something he has been trying to do for many, many years. And he wants to annex the West Bank, as we see him blowing up building after building in Jenin and arresting dozens and dozens and dozens of people in the West Bank. What does Trump want? Well, we thank him for his work to get a ceasefire, something that President Biden failed to do for 15 months. But then what else do we see him do? He lifts the hold on 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. He asked Congress to approve $1 billion more in weapons that include those bombs and armed bulldozers that have been razing people's homes, not only in Gaza, but throughout the West Bank. He appoints people to be the UN representative for the United States, Elise Stefanik, who says in a confirmation hearing in Congress that Israel has the biblical right to what she calls Judea and Samaria, i.e. the West Bank. He appoints as U.S. ambassador to Israel a fanatic evangelical who says there is no such thing as the West Bank and there is no such thing as a Palestinian. We see that President Trump has an incredible opportunity now, which he says he wants peace in the Middle East. Will he go the road of the warmongers, or will he listen to the voice of the people in the United States that have said for months now, not only did we want a ceasefire, but we want to stop sending weapons to Israel? And will he listen to the voice of the international community and the slogan that we have been saying for month after month after month? Netanyahu does not belong on the streets of Washington, D.C. He belongs in The Hague. He is a war criminal.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
War criminal.
Our next speaker is Nihad Awad, the Executive Director of CAIR.
Good afternoon. Nihad Awad, NIHAD, AWAD, the National Executive Director of CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Today is a sad day. A sad day for all those who believe in the rule of law and those who believe in accountability. It is a sad day for those around the world and those are in the United States who protested war crimes and genocide, who called on our nation leaders months after months to stop the bloodshed that has been armed and financed by the United States weapons, that has been financed by American taxpayer dollars, that has been approved and overseen by the previous American administration. Today is a sad day that an international fugitive, a war criminal that has been indicted, where there is an arrest warrant against him, a war criminal that has ordered the killing of more than 61,000 Palestinians, mainly children and women, and the injuring of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. A war criminal that has obliterated the Strip of Gaza. A war criminal that has denied medicine and water and humanitarian aid to get to millions of people who are stranded and caged in the Gaza Strip while being bombarded. A war criminal that has defied international law and norms. This international fugitive is in Washington, D.C. It is a sad day that President Trump, instead of upholding international law and handing this war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu to The Hague, he is welcoming him and meeting with him in the People's House, in the White House. This is a shame that will stain America's reputation for generations. President Trump is sending a very contradictory message to the great work that he did by enforcing and leading to a peace deal, by forcing Benjamin Netanyahu to agree to a peace deal. Today, President Trump is sending a contradictory message to the great work that he has accomplished and saved tens of thousands of Palestinian lives. By hosting Benjamin Netanyahu, President Trump is telling us that more war could be on the way. By asking Congress to approve another $1 billion worth of American weapons is a sign that the genocide will continue. By hosting this war criminal today, President Trump is making it difficult for him to attain the title that he would like to have, a president of peace. President Trump, by hosting this war criminal today, is telling the world that you can have immunity, you can kill, maim, and destroy if you have the support of the United States. President Trump today is undermining international laws and humanitarian laws and is telling the world that Palestinian lives do not matter. He is on the same way of dehumanizing the Palestinians, belittling their suffering, and by calling for the displacement of the Palestinians from the West Bank and from Gaza, but mainly from Gaza, President Trump is becoming a participant, full participant in the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. That is a war crime by itself. Americans should not stand for that. President Trump has told us and told the world that he is going to prioritize America's interest by giving Israel more money while firing American hard workers in federal agencies, including the USAID, is literally putting Israel first. Putting Israel's first at the expense of America's interest is very contradictory to his message, to his platform, to his promises. And I hope that he will take this opportunity to heed our calls, to respond to the pleas of Palestinian people and those who support Palestinian liberation, is to put an end to the war on the Palestinians and to prevent Benjamin Netanyahu from annexing the West Bank and Gaza. And we hope that President Trump will not be dragged and fooled by this war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu to launch a war on Iran and destabilize the region further. President Trump has a golden opportunity to put an end to the suffering of the people in the region and hold the Israeli leaders accountable instead of celebrating them and ignoring the suffering of those who have suffered at the hands of America's foreign policy and the Israeli extremist government that has been wreaking havoc in the region. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Dr. Osama Abu Shed, the Executive Director of AJP Action and American Muslims for Palestine.
Good afternoon. My name is Osama Abu Shed, OSAMA, last name ABUIRSHAID. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a wanted war criminal, is in Washington, D.C. not to seek peace, but rather to perpetuate a genocide in the Gaza Strip and to continue the war crimes in the West Bank. He further aspires to ignite a regional war in the broader Middle East. 2 weeks now into the fragile ceasefire, we have initial numbers from the human toll, the toll of the Israeli war crimes in the Gaza Strip. And these initial numbers are as such. 61,000 people have been murdered so far. And remember, these are initial numbers out of 2.4 million people, the inhabitants of the Gaza Strip. So 61,000 people have been murdered. Out of them are 18,000 children, including 214 infants, 13,000 women, 38,000 children have been orphaned. We have 2,092 families who were completely wiped out of the civilian registry in the Gaza Strip. And we have 2 million out of 2.4 million have been displaced in Gaza, and 85% of the Gaza Strip have been completely decimated. So we're talking about a man with such a horrendous record, such a man who's wanted by the ICC should not be celebrated here in Washington, D.C. Rather, he should be held accountable, he should be arrested and sent to The Hague. But unfortunately, what we see now is that he's being celebrated. He's being celebrated, although he's trying to evade his responsibility, what he has agreed to back on January 19th, to continue with the ceasefire, but now he's evading the second stage negotiations. He doesn't want to continue the negotiations to keep his extremist government intact at the expense of innocent lives on both sides, the Palestinian and the Israeli side. So this man shouldn't be rewarded. But unfortunately, what we see is that he's being rewarded. He's being rewarded with more military assistance. He's being rewarded with more, or by lifting the freeze on the 2,000-pound bombs that have devastated Gaza and the civilian population of Gaza. He's being rewarded by calls to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip. He's being rewarded by hinting at potentially allowing Israel to annex 60% of the West Bank, meaning that we're not only now talking about an apartheid state, but we're also now confirming that Israel is a genocidal state, something that is confirmed already by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and confirmed by Israeli human rights organizations such as B'Tselem. This contradicts and contravenes what President Trump has promised. He told us that this ceasefire would have not taken place had it not been for him and for his efforts. Well, yes, we agree with him. Israeli officials confirmed that Netanyahu feared Trump more than he feared Bin Gvir and Smotrich. That's good. Yes, we want America to be respected again, as President Trump continues to say. He wants America to be respected. But in order for America to be respected, a client state like Israel should respect the United States. You can't take $24 billion of our tax money. You can't take military assistance. You cannot wipe out an entire population, commit a genocide in our name, by our tax money, by our weapons, and then disrespect us. What we see that this man who's coming to the White House today, he thinks that he can manipulate the President of the United States, Donald Trump, the way he manipulated the former President, Joe Biden. Well, President Trump should take a stand on this. Should take a stand on this and not promising more bribes to a client state, not promising more bribes to a war criminal. No annexation of the West Bank, no displacement of the Gaza Strip, and no for a war in the broader Middle East that will drag the United States into it. President Trump said that he wants his legacy to be known as a man of peace, a man who makes peace, not a man of war. But Netanyahu wants to drag this president and the United States to commit another war and another genocide in the broader Middle East. So we call on the president, A, no more weapons to Israel, no more military assistance, no more waivers for this state, and no more disrespect for the United States by a client state. Netanyahu should answer to the American people the way he answers to the Israeli people. Because if it wasn't for us, he wouldn't be in office today. And if it wasn't for us, his state would have not been able to commit the genocide in our name. So it is time that this president delivers on his promise that he wants to restore respect for America, and restoring respect for America is to avoid the failed policies of the former president, who made America laughable and who made Israel give the middle finger, if I'm now quoting Senator Van Hollen, who said that Netanyahu at every juncture gave President Biden the middle finger. We don't want to see that middle finger again pointed at us. We don't want to see that middle finger again pointed at Donald Trump. Donald Trump should give the middle finger to Netanyahu. That's the way it is, and that's the way it should be. So we call on this president to stand for American respect and to stand for human rights, although I know that he doesn't believe much in human rights. But all of these abuses, all of these crimes have been committed in our name. And if he doesn't want his legacy to be tainted, this is his chance to show who the boss is. He's meeting with Netanyahu, show him who the boss is. And Biden, Netanyahu proved that he was the boss. Now it is time to show who the boss is. And Trump has this golden opportunity to show the world who the boss is, and that he's ushering a new era as he's telling us. It doesn't mean that we agree with everything, with all of his policies, but we agree with one thing. America, yes, should be respected again, but based on what it stands for in terms of what we claim of human rights, First Amendment when it comes to the right of freedom of expression and the right to assemble, to freedom of assembly. Unfortunately, he's issuing executive orders to limit and to infringe on these rights. He should stop, because we hold these values dear and we hold them high. And we respect them, and we expect them to respect them, and we expect them to take a stand today with Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes our press conference. Our speakers are available for interview one-on-one. But we are at the conclusion. Thank you all for joining us. And to keep up with our work, please follow our organizations on social media, where we will be giving updates on upcoming actions and work.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
If there are any questions, the speakers are available to take it from the podium as well.
For whoever wants to take this, how hopeful are you that the new president will be able to pressure Netanyahu into making this ceasefire hold so the war doesn't restart?
I mean, I'll talk in my personal capacity. I'm not very hopeful, but I know that if he wants to, he can pressure him. So the issue is not the ability to pressure, but whether there is a willingness to pressure him. So if he wants to, he can. I'm not very hopeful, but I hope that he proves us wrong.
If I may also add, President Trump, unlike President Biden, has shown the world that he can pressure Israel. And he was able to do that before even he became a president. And we give him credit for that, and we thank him for forcing Benjamin Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire, which is good for all people and all involved. So he has the opportunity now to continue to show leadership by A, holding the ceasefire, committing Benjamin Netanyahu not to restart the war because his extremist government members are asking for the resumption of the bombing of Gaza. So President Trump knows that the political survival of Benjamin Netanyahu lies on the continuation of the genocide. But who will be hurt? The Palestinians, the Israelis, and America's interest and America's standing, and also Trump's reputation and his promise to be the president of peace. So today, he has a golden opportunity to commit Benjamin Netanyahu to a sustained ceasefire, end of the hostilities, lifting the blockade on the Gaza Strip, rebuilding Gaza, and allow the Palestinians to live their lives like any other people around the world.
I'm hearing a sort of change of tone, no condemnation of President Trump, but more on open arms, do the right thing. Have you reached the White House? Have you reached the administration? Have you heard back since the inauguration?
There is no change of tone. We as Muslims, when we see something good, we should recognize it. And when he forced Benjamin Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire, I think that is everything and everybody should respect that. However, we are in total disagreement with President Trump on so many executive orders to go after undocumented communities, to deport families and children, to destroy families, potentially to reinstate a Muslim ban, to go after federal agencies and federal workers. We are in total disagreement with him. But doesn't mean that he's just an enemy of us and the people. We believe that the office he's holding is so powerful, and he has important opportunities to bring peace to the region, peace that is based on justice and liberty and dignity and respect for all. So this is our appeal to him because he can do it. And he promised to do it. We're not making up anything. So we're not in enmity with him, and also we're not in bed with him. We are constitutionally operating on our advocacy as American citizens, as organizations that represent large constituencies, and above all, that people who believe in the rule of law. So the president has an opportunity to demonstrate leadership by upholding international laws, American interests, and American laws that prevent the United States from shipping arms to governments and entities that are known to violate human rights, which is the Leahy Law. The President Biden allowed that to happen, and Trump is about to do it. We just urge him to respect American laws as well.
I mentioned some of the appointments that he has made that are very worrisome to us, but then there are other people like Steve Witkoff, who is the envoy, who actually went to Gaza. Now, of course, he went through the Israeli military. He probably just spent a few hours there. But even so, he said that the devastation was beyond anything that he could think of. And so I think that there are possibilities with some of the people around Trump that understand how horrific this has been and how horrific it would be to get into a war with Iran, including in the people in the Pentagon who have been saying that for quite a long time. And since you are here as journalists, I also do want to say that we think it's so important to pressure Israel and Egypt to allow international journalists into Gaza, because people have to see with their own eyes. And then I think it changes their whole understanding of not only what happened, but what needs to happen. Thank you.
I think President Trump is invited two priorities. His priority is to advance the normalization in the region, and he would like to see economic growth, and he's talking about business. Netanyahu tells his people that for 15 years, he has been stalling the two-state solution. So we are asking President Trump, Netanyahu does not want to have a two-state solution. Saudi Arabia says we will not do normalization until there is a Palestinian state. Who is going to win the argument? Would Donald Trump be the President of the United States who put the United States' interest and the region's stability and the growth in economic opportunity first, or he would listen to Smotrich and to Netanyahu and to Itamar Ben-Gvir? So these are the two competing priorities that we are monitoring. Donald Trump is very unpredictable. DC sometimes making statements that are very, very concerning. He said today, I believe, or yesterday, that Gaza is so devastated, it cannot be lived anymore. So that's why he is asking Egypt and Jordan to take Gazans in there. And that is a concerning. Absolutely, this is unacceptable. At the same time, he is looking for peace in the region. He cannot have the peace in the region without solving the Palestinian problem, period. This goes for 75 years. Until and unless the Palestinian issue is resolved and the rights of the Palestinian is fully given, there is no peace, there's no stability in the region. They better understand that very well. Otherwise, they're dragging the region into more hostilities, more instability, and the American people are paying their tax money to fuel these kinds of instability. So we are waiting and seeing what Donald Trump is going to do in his 4 years as a president of the United States.
What kind of leverage do you have with this administration? We know that with the previous administration, you had the votes, right? And even that did not work. And also you had a seat on the table. You've been invited to negotiations, despite the fact that most of you did not attend these invitations to the White House. So the question is, do you have any levers in this game? And also, do you have access to the White House? Do you have access to the inner circle of Trump administration? Do you have access to even those from the Middle Eastern or of Middle Eastern backgrounds who have a seat on the table with which you can negotiate and reason with them and convey your messages?
It's a very tough question to answer because there is some communication now. Am I going to claim that these communications are effective? I don't think anyone can make that claim. But I don't think that our leverage is defined by us having a seat on the table. There is a movement in America. We've seen this movement during the past 16 months, during the genocide in Gaza, which is still continues today. But we've seen a movement, and this movement was very effective. Although they tried to crush it, they weren't able to crush it. We have some public opinion polls that show that Gaza contributed to the defeat of Kamala Harris. 29% of those who voted for Biden in 2020 didn't vote for Kamala Harris in 2024 because of her stand on Gaza and because of the stand of the Biden administration on Gaza. So there is a movement, and that's why they're trying to censor this movement. That's why they're trying to crush this movement. That's why we see this sort of executive orders trying to infringe on the First Amendment and infringe on our rights as Americans and to intimidate those who stand for justice in Palestine. So the leverage that we have is the American people. It's the depth of this movement, is the extent of this movement. And we will continue to do our work. Now, we understand that Trump maybe feels that he's unaccountable or that he doesn't have to answer to this movement. But we know that the future belongs to this movement because there is a shift within the new generation. Those who were born after 1997 are more sympathetic with the Palestinian rights, and this is across the board, including in the evangelical base. So yes, we know that maybe we don't have the leverage that we aspire right now, but we know that this leverage exists, and it's a matter of a few years before this movement takes off and before we are in a position to hold everyone accountable, whether in the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, when it comes to their stance on the Palestinian rights. And I would say one last thing. Another leverage we have is what we claim that we stand for as the United States of America. If we stand for human rights, equality, justice, freedom for all, then we will be standing with the Palestinian people. But if we are hypocrite about what we stand for or selective, we're for them in Ukraine, but we're not for them in Palestine, then this speaks to those who hold the keys of power and those who are in the White House. Now this is the time for America to show what it really stands for, and those who fail in this test, they're going to pay the price, not only politically, but also in terms of where their legacies and what history will write about them. So it is a choice that Trump is in a position to make today. Biden has failed that test. He went down in history in disdain. Trump has an opportunity to be that man of peace that he aspires. Whether he gets the Nobel Prize or not, that becomes irrelevant. History will register what Trump stood for and what Trump was able to accomplish.
Any other questions? Thank you all very much.